Recording. 40 minutes. Okay.
No.
Okay, you guys have put attendance. I think you already done the attendance. Maybe you can start putting your attendance.
I'm done.
Huh? Attendance. You have to the attendance sheets. Okay. That is for session 3.
सरदार ऐसे करने तो सब करेगा
बढ़िया पिक्चर बनाया ले
Okay.
नाइस हो
Yeah, this is the attendance sheet for session 1.
भाई साहब को इसमें नहीं आ रहा है
Then it's all right.
थोड़ा सा ऐसे करेंगे तो ये कम और कट जाएगा
Okay. Now,
तुम्हारा तो
guys,
पूरा आ रहा है
can you make a little silent, please? Now, thanks for coming to my session and the training, and welcome back again. Now, today's session and the training is about another element of project management, which will be like which is managing project cost. Now, as I explained in the last session, managing the whole project depends on managing different areas in a project. And as I told you, a project can be very big or a project can be very small. But almost all the project anywhere is having basically these elements, 8 elements. Okay. The elements basically we talked about were managing the project scope, managing the project time, managing the project cost, managing the project schedule, managing project quality, managing the project communication, and managing project risk, and managing project resource. Now, I understand that you people have come from different backgrounds, and as usual, I would again want you guys to introduce yourself. Can you introduce yourself, Mr. One by one?
Jasmine
From you? What's your background?
from Arabia.
Okay, from Arabia. And what's your professional background?
I'm studying at the moment.
Okay. What about you?
I'm Jaru from India.
Okay. And what's your profession?
I'm studying at the moment.
Okay, fine. So what about you? Your introduction, please.
My name is Man. I'm
Okay.
from Australia.
Okay, very nice. And you're a student.
Yes.
Okay. You're studying automatics,
Yeah.
right? Automation. And sir?
With me, I'm Rajendra Singh.
Okay.
I'm from Punjab,
Yes.
and I'm a logistic assistant.
Very nice. Very nice. So the idea about this is because I needed to know all your backgrounds, because we have to understand where we come from and how we have handled some project or the other at certain times. So before we continue any further, obviously I would like you guys to be aware about the safety concerns over here, like the classrooms, and we need to stress that again. Is the exit is over here, and you go downstairs from here, and you got the muster point just out on the gate. So, and your displays, the board's displays gives you all the emergency contact numbers and everything. So you are aware about your safety requirements and the safety responsibilities. Now, with this element that I'm going to deal in detail today is the project cost, and there would be basically, it's a very vast area, and I'm going to dwell on only 2 areas in detail, one after the other. First would be, say, because managing project, when you manage a project cost in this first session, what I'm going to stress on is you will learn by the end of the session. You will learn how to identify the costs associated in a project. That would mean you would identify what all the costs you are foreseeing that would come to a project. Okay, and by the end of this session, you should be able to identify the various activities into their work breakdown structures. You should be able to associate cost to that, and you should be able to prepare the overall budget, the framework for that project. So that will be like on a planning basis. Okay. And of course, in the next session, maybe we'll deal about how to handle variation in project cost. So over here, I think what is the way to go forward is like I think I would like you to guys to have an estimate, a rough estimate, because everyone when he is handling a project, even if it is making say a small swimming pool or you're making a small toy, you have in the back of your mind, you know how much cost it will be encountering maximum. So when you're planning a project, you always prepare yourself for the minimum cost and you prepare for your maximum cost. So the idea over here is you have to be prepared for either of the situations. Most likely the company will want you to be prepared for the for you not to just aim to be within the what you say the maximum threshold, or that is called they don't want to overshoot the budget. So because you know what is the cost is, in other words, the total cost and is also called as the budget. So whatever money you keep for finishing the project is the budget, is your budget. And when you plan the budget, it's like you're planning the cost. So as I said, in this session you will first understand that what is important in planning or managing costs is the most important is that you have to be realistic. So realistic would mean you have to be honest with your estimate. So when you say you're planning, you're managing the budget, you obviously will want me to be honest with identifying all the activities associated in the project, first thing, and 40 minutes.
Okay.
Or and at the same time you will be wanting to be honest to predict the actual cost or the realistic cost of each WBS associated in the project or each element of that project. So what I am trying to say is, say you're doing some project, you would want to first list out all the activities in that project. So if for example you are preparing a swimming pool, so first thing what you'll do is start putting all the activities related in that project to get the real cost is and that will begin from things like you will put the cost to your planning stage, your designing stage, then you will want to put cost to your permits from the council, then you would say again want to put cost to choosing the right subcontractor to get the materials, and then you will put a cost to purchasing the stuff actually, and then you will have cost associated to hiring the craneage, for example. You will have cost associated, you will put identify the activities will be like, then you will get someone to excavate your backyard, then you would have to identify another activity will be to install that, then you will have things like installing the plumbing. You will have to can anyone add some activities to that? Jasmine, do you think there is any more activities associated with a project like installing a swimming pool besides this? Yeah, there's a lot. The more deep you go and try to break the activities, the more closer you are to estimating the right cost for a project. Say for example, now what we have missed out, for example, we have missed out all the projects associated with the the protection of the pool, then the fencing of the pool, things like landscaping, then there are transportation, yes, very good point. Then there is a cost associated to the pumps and everything is a part of the gears, but there is always a cost associated which you should always keep as contingency or the spare for example for the maintenance of the pool. Okay, that is not an immediate cost, but you always have to be prepared for that in the immediate run. So that's what I am coming to, is the more honest and realistic and the detail your activities are listed, the more accurate will your cost budget will become, your costing will become, and the better you're prepared for meeting the budget. So once you know what is the real amount you are looking at, you can plan yourself to take the project, you can plan yourself to execute the project, and you wouldn't have situation where you later on say you're finishing the project and you realize where did the money go, all this money go. So this is the first part, and there are tools in project manage, although we know that this is a small project, for example. So in certain scenarios you can do this kind of project only with basis of simple paperwork. But if it is a very big project, for example, like say if someone is building up, is making a big building, or he's making a big refinery plant, for example. What happens in such a situation is that the cost is such an important factor. Even a small change in underestimating a person will result into a big variation in the cost of the whole project. So if you are aware, I don't know, but see, when you are handling big plans, there are big costs associated with the designs. A small change in design by the client and one area will result into all the changes down the line. So it will result into, cost for redesigning, cost for correcting the fabrication, cost for again commissioning the fabrication. So that is where the thing called variation in cost come and planning for contingency. So it is always good if you have an extra budget for meeting such variation. Because what happens is whenever someone is quoting for a project and winning, he or she is not allowing for these variations, okay? And it is like a lump sum. So it is always advisable that you allow certain budget for meeting these variations, okay? Now, as I was saying, see, if it is a very big project, it's not usually good and advisable to do all the costing and budgeting using your simple, Microsoft Office or something, okay, or Excel. There are special tools which you guys will learn to use for schedule to basically schedule the budget, okay? So can someone give me an example of a software which helps you to handle this cash flow or handle the budgets?
For cash flow, you can use Maya or QuickBooks.
Okay,
Use
yeah.
Zero.
Yeah, but have you heard about SAP?
No.
System Analyst Programming? Yeah. Have you heard about this? So basically there is many of them, okay? But what is good, what is important is like you have to be aware about the modern developments in the planning and the costing industry. Because softwares always keep coming and it is good if you are aware about the software and you keep yourself updated to the latest ones. So the next thing obviously that will take time, and maybe we give you projects where you will be wanting to, you have to do your estimation on a certain small dummy project, you put the cost to it and you will have to account for all the money, okay? So at the end of the project, every scheduler or every costing professional, the estimator is supposed to find out what has been the total variation. Have you ended up saving some money? Have you ended up spending more money? Or have you break even? Okay. So that is an important part of costing. Now see, everyone knows costing not only depends on the amount of activities in the job, or it also and the services. There is also something called services, but it also depends on two more factors. One is the quality. Supposing you have given commitment to finish a job to this standard, Australian standard. Suddenly, for some reason, the client wants you to follow the British standard. Okay, what happens? Suddenly, the design has to change basically, and there is a lot of things which may be allowed in Australian standards, but may not be allowed in the American standard or the British standard. So what happens if the quality in that sense is changed? That has a bearing on the cost, isn't that so?
Yeah.
So cost basically is always affected on the schedule and the quality most of the time, okay? And the third thing, as I said, is the variation. If you are taking more time to finish the project, ultimately your cost is also going up. If your quality is changing, or the client are not accepting your product, or you have to do it on a better quality, and ultimately you will end up paying more. So as a business person, or as a efficient employer for your company, you will always want to estimate, because when you're estimating quoting on a job, you're estimating the price, you're giving the price, and when he wins the job, the company, the boss expects you to somehow, when he finishes the job, he ends up with some balance, okay, or when he finishes within the budget. So that's how the responsibility is very high on the costing people, that they do the estimation on the cost very correctly, as correctly as possible. Now, see, I would now come to down to an area where you have to give me an example where the cost has changed considerably because there is a change in schedule. Do you think a hold up in a certain project because of some reason that will result into an increase in cost? Who thinks that? Yourself. That's right. So, but there is something, see, when you're scheduling a project, you can always allow for some backups, allow for contingencies. There's something like called as critical path analysis, which gives you the most efficient method to finish a project. But if there's changes in that, you can still cover those changes for not a significant amount of expenses on that. So same applies to the quality. Now, I would want you to understand how when a budget is determined, you are following certain steps to mark a budget. Basically, can you give me what are the elements when you are scheduling a budget? Costing, that's what is budgeting. So what all factors you will try to put into your budget in a spreadsheet, in your costing? You will put down first the elements, the activities in the project. Activities, services, then you will put down the cost to your resources, what are materials. Then can you give me one more example? What is where the cost goes into a project? First one, as she said, was activities. Second one is your materials. Can someone tell me some more? Labor, yes. Then machinery.
Yeah.
So basically, any project has a basic requirement all the time for in all cases. There are 3M rule followed for which is required for most of the project. That is man, machinery, and materials. So you always will account for these things at least. But there is other things also, obviously, at many times. Something like designing, for example. Something depends on from project to project. So you have designing, then you have got situation like services, hiring someone to do hydro testing, for example. You have to go for services. That comes as a part of labor. But some people are specialized services. So you have to allow for all that separately. Okay. And so this is what I'm trying to stress, that your budget has to account for almost many things, or whatever is allowed is going to happen on the job, and you have to allot the proper money or the proper costing to every activities. Okay. So and now there's something when you're doing costing and budgeting, you also have to be good with the taxes system. Okay, your rights and responsibilities as a purchaser. Because today you are putting some cost to purchasing a lot of stuff or whatever. Now what happens is whenever that is going to the procurement people, they have their terms and conditions, okay, to follow. So it always depends. You should always allow for if there is a delay from the supplier side by 2 or 3 months or something, you have to allow for certain delays. Okay, in a way this is not the variation from the client side, this is the variation from your vendors. What happens, you are in between. Every person in the job market has got two people, one who is the client and one who is for whom he is the client, or like his subcontractor. So the delay can not only happen from the client side, it can also happen from your side and as well as the subcontractor side. So I'm just giving you one example where if the your supplier cannot import that product from Singapore in say 1 month's time as he committed, what will happen? Because of that, you will have a whole amount of work stopped at your place. So many people will remain idle, and then the client will back charge, because their site is also on hold up. So what happens is a small hold up can result into a big kind of loss, a big money. So that's the idea. So when you are estimating a certain service, you have to always keep in mind or allow for a certain percentage, so that if there is some hold up or there is some variation in the schedule or the quality, say for quality, variation in schedule and variation in quality. Say if the product is coming from Singapore and after coming all the way you find that only one flange has come, other flange is not come, or say only one pair of shoe, or the thing is not to the standard, that is a quality issue. So again that will result into all rejection, non-conformance, and then you will end up having to return the stuff and then delay in time and then delay in, so the delay in quality always results in delay in time. So that's how why people always follow the policy: early start, early schedule, and early start and late start in scheduling. Okay. So what I again want you, when you do your dummy project, say if you're making a swimming pool for example, I would like you guys to sit between yourselves and communicate between yourselves, because what is most important when you're costing a certain job is that you should know how much money you have in your pocket. Am I right? Because that is the most important thing. When you talk of resources to do the costing, it's not only about how much you can spend, it is also about how much machineries you have got. Say fabrication companies is quoting, he will obviously, he not only has to think about how much money he's got to buy the materials, he has to think about how much machinery he got in his shop to do that work. That is also called as resources. Then again what he has to think about is how many people he is having on the floor to do the work. So when you are doing the costing, you have to think about resources of all kinds. Supposing the company has got only one printer, and in that company is taken a project worth 10 millions. You think that resource is enough? No. In that case you have to allow for one more printer. Is that clear? So what happens if you think about that? Ultimately, when you say to your boss, okay, boss, we think that we can finish the project in 800,000. You really, when he does it, it should finish in that kind of, he should be able to save rather than go on the top of it. So this is what basically the costing is all about. But basically there is another area to costing which is very important. What happens? I'll tell you. Just in the way people learn to manage cost scheduling, managing timeline or scheduling. In the same way, this is an important part of managing cost. What is that? It's like what happens as a costing guy yourself, you have put an estimate to the project. Say it is 10 millions. Now what happens because of all the changes to the man, material, machinery, your supply, or any change in quality, this and that, there is a delay, there is a changes in your cost. So what happens? You now know at say 2 months down the line, you know that now there is more expenses. So what will be your job at that point of time? That is what is here. See over here. Here's where the element with the thing called as monitoring the cost is coming. You know what is monitoring and following it up. So your responsibility doesn't only end with only planning the budget. Your responsibility starts from that day basically. And after that, monitoring means you will follow up the actual expenses time to time, and you will relate it to your planned budget. And if you find that you're going over budget, you have to put another budget into plan, okay, into existence or into plan, so that your owner, your people know how to meet that variation. Okay. So what happens? Say 3 months down the line, you know that your floor is needing more people to finish the project. So what will be your approach from there? As a budgeting costing guy, what should be your approach? You tell me.
Set up a new budget for the project.
Yes, and the new budget will mean you will immediately inform your superiors or company manager that okay, see, this is going to take more money than what you originally thought because of so and so reason. So you should try to talk about that with the client and get them to agree to meet that for whatever reasons. So your responsibility is to inform about the cost. The boss is always worried about finishing the job, but you have to be worried about how much money he is spending all the time. So that is what is called monitoring and evaluating the costing process, and that goes on right till the end. Okay, what happens is, the good thing about this, after a project is finished, what you are expected to know is what is called the learning the outcomes, learning lessons. So after every project you are expected to kind of summarize all the lessons you have learned from that project, and it is very good if you use that lessons to your next project. So say for example, you did a project and you ended up spending say 500,000 more, just because, not only by the quality, because one guy at hydro testing guy was taking more time to finish that job. So what is the learning outcome? The learning outcome is that that task will take more time. You have to allow for more money budget in the next. So that's where your review and monitoring comes. Okay. Now see, there is, because costing is a very big area. Obviously we can't cover all the areas in this one session, but yeah, the second aspect I am trying to cover is you should know how to prepare your budget, your documentation. Okay, because although you say sometimes you are very good with the budgeting, but if you don't keep your records very correct, okay, you are not good with your maths, you are not good with your paperworks, what will happen? Even though you know about this thing, you will end up producing wrong reports. You will end up giving the wrong estimates to the company. So the idea is, when you are doing the documentation, you really have to be careful and to follow the rules of the game. So for example, if you are scheduling a budget, you have missed out, accounting for the taxes. What happens? You end up paying the taxes, but your vendor doesn't pay, for example. Then you don't allow for the logistics, for example. Supposing you have put cost for buying the material, but you have not put some cost for transportation of that material. What happens? Later on you find out the material is less of the cost, the transportation has resulted into a big variation. So that is where you have to allow for the documentation to the point and to the second decimal places, as I say, in monetary terms. Okay. So finally everything should be compatible. Okay. You allowed for so much budget. Okay. This was this. It should marry. Okay. Can you give me another example where in documentation people do mistakes?
Writing the wrong amount.
Writing the wrong amount. That obviously I covered. Okay. I just told you if you are using the wrong the wrong figures. But there are some more areas where people do big mistakes. It results into a big loss of kind of money. Okay. Say for example, if one of the guys is putting all his figures in the format of accountings. Okay. He's used the amounts everywhere in dollars. Okay. And he's buying it from overseas. And over here he's put the cost to his estimate in just $8 and everywhere dollars. What happens when the thing is being produced in American dollars? The company will think that okay, this cost has been in Australian dollars, and when they end up paying in American dollars, they will pay 77 cents. So that is an example I'm saying when you're dealing with costing. Yeah. So I can give you a few more. I'll give you one. So there are some places where guys are using. There are formats of accounting. Some have the accounting format of tallying. Some people have the the numbering kind of system. Some have the dollar kind of system. If you don't use the right format, right fonts, right system of decimal you will end up having differences in your budgeting. So now we'll talk about some tools that is useful for review and analysis of budgets. Can you guys give me some examples of some tools that is used in budgeting? Okay, batao. Okay.
No, 10 minutes more.
Achha. So, can you give me some examples of some tools which is used in budgeting? Some variation. Because see, what happens when you are doing analysis, it is not always about reviewing the amount of the money, okay, and the figures all the time. You can have a clear idea about where your profit and loss is going. If say you make a graph, for example, your predicted graph, your estimated budgets, your actual budgets. You can get a better review. For example, you make a pie chart, huh? You make a bar diagram. So you basically can communicate. This is a part of communication. The better you communicate the performance to your bosses, to your stakeholders, the better your stakeholders are in a position to be prepared for any eventuality. So your responsibility when you are doing the costing is always a continuous. And as I said, when your review and monitor is going on, the purpose is for you to devise new methods to do more effective costing. Okay. To give you an example, say if you have learned that the terms of shipping, okay, because while you are costing, you always have to account for the payment terms. So there are many companies who have the terms for 30 days, okay, payment after invoice. There are some companies who want to invoice the stuff on progressive basis. So if say you have missed out this thing, clause in your subcontractor's code, because you are a part of the quoting system, okay, when you are putting a cost to a certain work, it's a big work, you can't just take any figure from your mind, okay. You will go to that, say, you know, the hydro testing people or the supplier, and you will tell, I need a quote for these many materials, okay, and this is only for, because we are quoting, we are not intending to buy. So once you get that price, you have, and you will use it to quote to your client. Now what is very important, when you quote to your client, supposing your vendor, your supplier has a very small fine print, okay, which says somewhere in the corner, is that he has not allowed for so and so thing, and you have missed out that point, okay. What happens when you quote to your client, he thinks that you have allowed for everything. I'm just giving you an example. So, and what happens when the thing is delivered to the client, that thing has been missed out, because, so what, and finally what happens? Your client will say he wants the right product, but the person from whom you got the quote has not allowed for this, so, you know, he basically has done his job, but so you will have to, but then you have promised the thing to the client. So the cost comes down to you for whatever your vendor has not allowed. So what I am trying to say is, when you are costing a certain stuff, you have to make dead sure that whatever price you've taken for whatever item, you describe that to your client. If you don't put that riders and clauses and what you have allowed for, then what happens, if you don't put it there, then you will end up paying for all that, okay. So that is another area where people end up paying more, because they have not read properly what they have got the cost for. Okay, this is not about a swimming pool, for example. It's swimming pool, you just want, even if it is swimming pool, you want to put a budget to it, to the pump. What will happen? What will happen is, okay, you can take some amount from your mind, but when you're going to two vendors, subcontractors for the quote, say, you know, maybe, you know, all these vendors, as many, they can have different models of pump. They can have a different horsepower rating of the pump, okay, isn't it? They can have a different brand of the pump. So if you're quoting the same stuff to someone and you don't allow for that capacities, the client may have that requirement, because everything starts from the inquiry. When you get a job to inquire, the client will give you the drawings, okay, a whole set of drawings, and you have to price that up. So it's very important that you understand what the client wants and you give him the cost to what he requires, okay. If you don't give him the cost exact to that, you are accountable for that, if you are not qualified for that in your quote. So see, basically you basically are not exactly the estimators, but the estimator is relying on you, okay, because see, the process starts from the stage where the client has sent you an inquiry for a job to complete, and that inquiry, for that inquiry you are supposed to give him a price, that is what is called your quote. And so whatever tenders the client is floating, in the same way at times you have to float small tenders to get price from your subcontractors. So what I'm trying to say is, the more thorough you are with reading the terms and conditions of your client's tenders, the more equipped you will be to get the price for that kind of stuff from your vendors. Because that is where most of the project go into problems. Okay? Now, I would like you guys to give me some examples where you have estimated certain money for a certain project and you ended up with spending more because of some reasons. Can you give me one example?
Like I bought some stuff from the market
Okay.
and it's not the same company
Mm-hmm.
that I'm looking for,
Mm-hmm.
and they're giving the same product
Mm-hmm.
which is launched by any other company.
Okay.
It costs me a bit more money.
Okay. Yeah. That is one example. Yeah, good one. How about you, Jasmine? Do you know any examples where you have ended up spending more because what you planned against what you planned?
Of course, the brands cause problem. I mean, I'm sure.
Hmm. I think you are buying a lot of consumer goods all the time, for example.
Yeah, sort of.
Say for your some dresses or some some apparels or some garments, for example, and you carry some money in your pocket, okay, thinking you will be able to get that stuff. Tomorrow you go to a shopping center, okay, and you bought the same stuff, okay. You place the order to them, or say you went to eBay and you place the order, okay. What happens? You gave them a size, okay. Then what happens? And then they did not, you were not very clear about certain dimensions, and they sent you assuming that okay, the size will be so and so. When it comes back to you, you find that it doesn't fit you. So what happens? You have when you return the postage, when you're returning the stuff, and then it is replaced, the postage is on you. So that is a small example where you will end up if you're not following the specifications. The specification, because any job costing is always a function, depends on cost should be, if it is is followed as per the standard or the specification or the design, you will always be more safer, isn't it? Estimating, say, even time to finish the work is the biggest kind of contributor to the cost. Say many example. Say for example, in a company, people think that they can do a certain fabrication in 400 hours, but that is an estimate, okay. But what happens when they go on to do it, even if without problem, there can be hundreds of reasons. Say for example, the workers are not reporting on time, or say if the workers are like slow a little, the weather conditions are not good, or say for example, there has been problem in the supply, or some hold up somewhere. There will be an overshooting of budget. So overshooting of budget or scope is also something which you have to take into account. Now there is one last area where you have to always be prepared for when you are handling budgeting. That is called creep of scope. You know what scope is, obviously. For any project, to start with, a scope is basically understanding what the job is exactly, in simple English. So if you got given a big job to code or to price, you should know what is your responsibilities in the job, what your company has to supply. That is what is called a scope. If you don't understand the scope properly, then you will always end up giving a price which is less or more to what the scope is. So what I'm saying, say for example, you get a job from a client, big client. Suddenly in between somewhere, the client wants you to, put some more structural into that, or supply you 2-3 more pieces. So what happens? If you don't pick up that change in the scope, that is called creep of scope, you may end up paying, sending him the material, but you may not end up accounting for that money, or you may not end up charging that money to the client. So what I'm trying to say is that you should always look out for what is the extra job the client has given to you. So you can always bill that to them, okay? And so that you don't give it free to them, basically. Am I clear? I think we'll end the session over here, and in the next session we will understand how to improve on your budgeting, okay? To be more efficient on the budgeting, okay? So, and there are other factors as well. So, yeah, thanks for this one. I'll end up my session over here. Maybe you can give me your feedbacks from here.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Cheers. Any questions, please?